I spent about half of the 2020s hosting a podcast called Delayed Replay, recapping and reviewing movies that came out on time in my universe but got delayed in that other universe. And as such, the movies as they were in my universe came out differently. Some listeners not of this universe even think that this is an improvised comedy podcast. And hey, let them think what they want. It's entertaining either way, right? I'm Steven Shinder, and you're listening to Delayed Replay Season 6. Hashtag 6 seasons about movies. New episode every other Saturday. Unless I say otherwise. Hey everyone, before the Mortal Kombat II discussion, just want to real quickly let you all know that after the discussion, you'll hear non-spoiler reviews of Begonia, Predator Badlands, and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So a few new films there. And without further delay, enjoy the show. Hello listeners, welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap or review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and I'm joined once again for the first time in a while. I can't remember what the last episode was, but here to talk about Mortal Kombat II, it is Mr. Multiverse. How's it going?
It is going good. I'm happy to be back and to do and part of the sequel. I was of the one of the first videos I did with you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that first Mortal Kombat episode was back in Season 1, and now we're in Season 6, so it's been like over 4 years, maybe almost 5, since that one came out for us. So, I guess to start off, like, what do you think of the whole sequel gap between these movies? Do you think it was a good idea for them to take their time, or do you think that it might have been too risky given that people could have like forgotten between then and now?
I think it's a double-edged sword, and I know it's a weird thing to say about that. My opinion on it is that I didn't care for the first movie. The first movie I had hoped for, and man, did it go sideways. But I feel like delaying it this long might help because there was so much. As much as that movie did well enough, I feel like this sequel, they clearly wanted to take their time with it, especially with the direction they went with this film.
Yeah, and I guess in a way they kind of felt that way about the gap as well, that it could be helpful, because, I mean, they definitely feed into it, because I get the vibe that they went into this second movie thinking, okay, people don't remember the first one as much, so it's fine if we change some stuff and like they don't have to remember everything. Like basically kind of like a soft reboot type of thing. Kind of comparable to that recap at the beginning of Evil Dead 2 where they sort of like just do broad strokes type of thing. So yeah, it is kind of weird that they did that, but I guess I can kind of see the reasoning.
It's funny that, this kind of mirrors in a weird way, and we'll get to one character in particular, but there's a lot of mirroring between this movie and Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and I know that's such a weird thing to say, but I really sat down and thought about it. I was like, this is like, it has a lot of the same kind of DNA as Annihilation, and I know Annihilation is the worst Mortal Kombat movie out there. If you were to ask me, though, what the best one is, the best Mortal Kombat movie, it is the animated film Scorpion's Revenge. But what I mean by that assessment, getting back on topic, is that there's a lot of shared DNA. Like, you have more of Outworld, you have a character that was vital, and we'll get to him in a moment, I'm sure, that was vital to the first movie, and he's killed off in the first act. And now we have a new character that we're following. And it's funny because the character we're following now is Johnny Cage, which Johnny Cage died in the very first act of Annihilation. So I find it funny that the character he's basically replacing is kind of like how they sort of replaced him in Annihilation. And again, you have Shao Kahn, you have more fights, you have more characters, and sometimes I feel like it gets lost in that. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's just kind of my opening thoughts.
Yeah, sometimes, this happens especially in horror movies when, the final survivor of the previous movie gets killed off at the beginning of the next one. Sometimes that annoys me, but it is also funny that it happened, like you said, in those 90s Mortal Kombat movies and now here as well, because I guess they figured, well, people care more about Johnny Cage. The stuff in the first movie we did a few years ago, it didn't scan as well with the audience. And you also mentioned the recent animated films. I think there have been 4 Mortal Kombat Legends animated films in the last few years, and they're pretty good. And I kind of wonder if maybe, in a way, they're kind of research and development for the live action stuff. We had that Johnny Cage animated movie, and maybe that was sort of a test run for, okay, yes, we can do Johnny Cage in live action now, type of thing.
Well, I would say, because Cage has always been popular, and I feel like if Cage was the main character rather than Cole Young, a completely generated character from the get-go, I feel like it would have made a difference. Also, I find it funny that this movie almost feels like a soft reboot. Again, much like Annihilation in a weird way. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of retconned low-key, how powers have to evolve in people in the first movie. Here it's just people can just do stuff. Much like in the video game. I also do appreciate that this movie also, unlike the first movie that tried to bring some kind of semi-realism to the first to the game, here they're just nah, we're just doing the game.
While we're comparing to Annihilation, one of the things I remember from Annihilation was that the visual effects felt like a huge downgrade from the movie before it. But how would you compare that against how the effects are in this one?
I was a lot more forgiving because Annihilation had a massive budget, and I was just where's the money? Where did the money go? I still think that to this day. Here, it's okay, it has a monochrome larger budget than the first movie, but they're using it well. There are some points where you can clearly see, they could have touched that up in post, or there's some bad CGI backgrounds. But I was a little more forgiving with the effects here than Annihilation. I think also what sells it is that their choreography was much better. The fight choreography really carried it, and it really felt like these guys knew what they had a better idea for a story.
Yeah, the effects definitely feel like they could have been a little bit better, but they weren't too bad. Maybe, I don't know, maybe if they gave it several more months, they could have fine-tuned that stuff even more, but I think given what they had, it was serviceable at least. And when it comes to Johnny Cage, I was really surprised that they got Carl Urban to play him because, knowing Mortal Kombat on a surface level, I guess I'm kind of used to thinking of Johnny Cage as a younger guy, but here they sort of go with that, that type of actor where it's someone really famous who's been around for a while and they still get a good amount of work. What'd you think of this choice?
It's like you said, it's a direction they've actually been going with Cage for a while in the animated films and the video games. So it didn't surprise me. Urban was not my first pick for Cage. I was like, really? I mean, I love Carl Urban, and I feel like he should have been Kano. But I was like, okay, I think he can make it work. And sure enough, he is arguably one of the best points of this film. Because I was like, oh wait, I forgot that Carl Urban can be funny. And I think, he absorbed himself into that role, into Cage's role. I thought I was going to just watch Carl Urban be Carl Urban with sunglasses. No. I think he's one of the best actors to play Cage since the original 90s movie.
Yeah, like, I was really impressed with him, and he, they really play into his fame, and they're like, oh, I really love Citizen Cage, can I get your autograph? And, he seems to be a little annoyed by being in the spotlight, so it is a bit of a change for him to end up in this whole tournament thing. What'd you think of that shift, for like that disruption in his normal life for his character?
I liked it. I think it's very much of Cage, where he thinks he's going to a movie shoot and he realizes, oh crap, this is real. And I will say that he accepts it a lot faster than in most movies. Here he's just like, he realizes he's not on a set or anything. He's just like, okay, I guess I'd fight or get killed. Especially with his fight with Baraka, excuse me, the name got away from me. His first fight with Baraka is solid. I also appreciate that they use Baraka a few times throughout the movie, and he has a little more character, because that's what bothered me with the first movie, is that they used my favorite character in Mortal Kombat, Reptile, as a jobber. And I was afraid they're going to do the same with Baraka, because he's also had the jobber status in video game adaptations.
I was honestly expecting Baraka to just be a one scene type of villain and just like, one and done type of fight. But yeah, like you said, they used him at multiple points throughout this movie, and, for what it's worth, definitely better than the X-Men Origins Wolverine Baraka, so...
Oh, we can't forget how good that was. I also appreciate that this movie, while it is clearly Cage's movie, they really balance between him and Liu Kang. Like, it almost becomes like a buddy cop film at one point between Cage and Kang.
Yeah, and they got some really fun banter between them. Like, one of them's like, I'm more experienced in this than you, and he's like, oh yeah, well, I've lived a million lives performing different roles in different films, and it's like, I don't know if that argument quite works, but okay.
I think my favorite scene is where they're fighting a bunch of like nameless goons, and they're just like, he's like, and Cage is like, "Hey, Jackie Chan, save some for the rest of us." And he goes, "Oh, whatever you say, Chris Tucker." He's like, "You watch movies? I'm from Earth, you dipshit."
Yeah, it definitely reminded me of that Rush Hour dynamic.
I was like, oh, I love the Rush Hour joke. I like Rush Hour.
Yeah. Wasn't there an outtake in one of those movies where, after Chris Tucker keeps saying Jackie Chan's name instead of the character's name, someone else in the scene is like, his name is Lee, damn it.
Yeah, that was Rush Hour too.
Yeah.
Who was the actor? Because it was Don Cheadle. And I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but it actually has like a theme here. Don Cheadle actually trained in martial arts, and he accepted that role if he could have a quick fight with Jackie Chan.
Oh, dang.
And in the movie, his character has like a quick hand-to-hand fight with Jackie Chan, and that was it. He didn't even get paid. That was just his, he was just there for like a couple hours, and that was his payment, was fighting Jackie Chan.
Wow, I really respect that game right there.
But getting back to the movie, I do like Liu Kang. Like, I appreciate, because we don't get a lot of Liu Kang and Johnny Cage being friends in the games, even though it's said. But here, it's like the two of them are like, they're both from Earth. They both have different styles, and Liu Kang actually like appreciates Johnny, because he's like, Raiden wouldn't have brought you if you didn't know how to fight. You had to defend yourself. You may look like an idiot, but you're actually like, you wouldn't be here without a reason. So I'm going to trust Raiden's intuition and have you fight with us.
Yeah, there are definitely those heartfelt moments like that, and sometimes there is comic relief, but I didn't find it as annoying as I do in other movies. Like, sometimes I'm trying to, like, figure out, like, what is that secret ingredient that keeps the comic relief from bogging things down, you know? And maybe it's not a one-to-one thing, but it's something I think about sometimes.
Yeah. So, and I'm sorry to jump around, I actually want to talk about the Scorpion Sub-Zero subplot, if that's okay.
No, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's the best part of the movie. I said before that Scorpion's Revenge is my favorite Mortal Kombat movie. And here, I wish we would do more, like, and as much as I hated the first Mortal Kombat movie, this continuity, I will say the Scorpion Sub-Zero parts are the best. And I'm like, why don't we just have a Scorpion movie? Why don't we just have a Scorpion Sub-Zero movie? They're the most popular characters. Why don't we do that? And Hiroyuki Sanada as Scorpion is perfect. He continues to be awesome. I love seeing, because for anyone out there who doesn't know about Mortal Kombat, this is the second Sub-Zero. This is Kuai Lang, the first Sub-Zero, Bi-Han's brother. And Bi-Han is now Noob Saibot, who does show up in here. But Kuai Lang doesn't know about it. Like, he never understood why the Scorpion killed Bi-Han. So he made it like his vendetta to kill Scorpion, and they had a rivalry. And we do carry that rivalry here, which leads to an awesome Sub-Zero Scorpion fight where Scorpion's just throwing the Kasurigama at him and, like, shouting, "Get over here." And in the middle of that fight, here comes Noob Saibot, and of course he can create those shadow clones, so it becomes like an awesome three-way fight. And it's just 7 to 10 minutes of pure action. And when like the rest of the movie shows up, I was like, "Aww, I forgot Scorpion was the main character. I'm sad now."
Yeah, also, they've been having this weird promotion thing with the movie where, like, if you buy a ticket, you can, like, have the option of, like, doing shadow clone mode. So what that means is that you get to buy a few other seats, and you can put, like, they, like, print out these posters of you that you can put on the seats. And I thought that was a bit much. That was too goofy of a gimmick for Warner Brothers to do with this movie.
Yeah, I will say the Snickers promotion was pretty fun. Like, have it be that, like, have other characters that weren't in the movie, like Motaro and what's his name, Collector, and Devora and other characters, and like having all these fights, and they're just getting their ass handed to them, and then someone will throw them a Snickers bar and be like, "Taste the fury, finish him with a Snickers bar," and then they just kill the other character with a Snickers bar.
Yeah. What'd you think of Katana in this movie?
Katana is pretty solid. I will say that I think she's more damsel of distress, which I don't like. They do that every time with Katana in most interpretations. Jade gets treated less here. Like, Jade gets less screen time here, and when she gets killed, I was just like, thanks, guys. They're the two most badass women in Mortal Kombat, and you just threw them under the rug.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. I was surprised that they included the Chrysler building as one of the set pieces in this. Like,
oh yeah, the fight between Jade and Natara, where Natara just freaking grabs Jade and just impales her on the top of the building.
Yeah, like, I'm surprised they were allowed to include that in this, and yeah, they were able to include it with the rating that it got.
Oh yeah, that they probably spent more than half the budget on that scene. Yeah, I will also say that there were some deaths in this movie that were like, holy crap. Like, again, Jade. I think also killing off Liu Kang was a shock because he's kind of one of the main characters of the franchise. Cole Young's death was not a shock. I was like, at the moment they said it, like when I saw that there was barely any scene in the trailer of Cole Young, I was like, oh, he's dying in the first scene. And sure enough, Shang Tsung just rips his soul out after a fight.
Yeah.
It kind of proves my point of what was the point of even creating a new character for the movie when we had so many other human characters you could have followed.
Yeah, like you can't just make stuff up for a Mortal Kombat story, you know? Like there's stuff to pull from.
Oh, I'm sure I'd love to hear Ed Boon hear this.
Another, I guess, different thing that they did in this movie is they gave Johnny Cage like sort of like he has this friendship with David Dastmalchian, actor.
Yeah.
The character Dastmalchian plays, actually, it's kind of funny because Dastmalchian plays Reptile, and normally Reptile would be a villain, but here in the recent games he's actually become like a hero type character. So it's kind of cool to like see my boy Reptile actually get some Reptile.
That's it. That's your one.
All right, it's been great, guys. This has been Delayed Replay. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, we are canceled. But yeah, I thought he did a pretty good job in that role. Like there are like certain aspects of this sequel that really do it better than the movie that came out a few years back.
There are like it is an improvement, but like it's still a flawed movie for me. It feels like a more put together Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Like this is what Annihilation should wanted to be, but it's still not like an A+ movie. And I know that's such a weird thing to say.
Yeah, like it still could have been like there are moments that feel kind of, I don't know how you would say it, but sort of cobbled together. Like sometimes it did feel kind of messy, like even if it is a bit of an improvement.
Yeah, like I said, it's like what Annihilation wanted to be, and I feel weird bringing up that to say that because Annihilation is the bane of every Mortal Kombat fan's existence. But it just feels like there's so much DNA shared with that movie and this movie. Like it's just a mildly well put together script with better fights and also way more tolerable characters. I will also say that this movie also references Annihilation, and I immediately went, "Oh, off." There's literally a scene, and I don't know. Have you seen Annihilation? I don't think I have that. This is my video.
Yeah, it's been maybe 4 or 5 years since I've seen it.
Okay. There's a scene where in the original film, Kitana sees her mother Sindel for the first time, and she's like, "Mother, you're alive," and her mother goes, "Too bad, you will die." And it's such a reference that when I was in the theater, I heard an audible groan when they referenced it in this movie, where Kitana faces Sindel, and she's like, "Mother, you're alive," and I was like, "Oh no, don't do this." and then Sindel goes, "Too bad, you will die," and I immediately was like, "Kill me." Let alone you referenced Annihilation.
Yeah. That kind of reminds me of when I saw Alien Romulus. You've seen that one, right?
Oh yeah, I know that. But as much as I love that movie, that scene made me just go, "You didn't have to do that."
Yeah. What?
Sometimes Hollywood. Hi, sit down and talk with you for a second. There's a fine line of referencing things in your movies. I understand that nostalgia bait is a great thing, but sometimes just not. Could you just not reference the thing and make us all groan in the theater? That'd be great. I'm all for, dusting off old IPs and, maybe even a reference or two, but when you make it so obvious and blatantly bad, maybe just not. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, like when that line in Romulus came up where one of the characters was like, "Get away from her," I thought to myself, oh, okay, if they cut off there and don't finish the line, then it's okay. It'll feel more natural. And he like shoots the thing and then gets down and then it's like, I said out loud in the theater, "God damn it." And my friend who was watching with me was like, "Wait, what?"
I literally like had the most audible groan when that scene happened. I was like, get away from! And I was hoping it would be stop right there, or maybe like he doesn't get to say the other half, like another xenomorph jumps on him or something, just to stop him from saying the line. I would have been down with that. I'd have been fine. But no, he says it and stutters the whole way, and I'm like, ah.
Right. Well, I think the get over here in this movie was at least better than that, if anything.
See, get over here is okay, because that's like Scorpion's big word, like his thing. Get over here and come here are like the two things Scorpion's known for, so you have to have him say it. That one's acceptable. But when you reference the worst Mortal Kombat movie of all time, and the most just so you can say you did the meme, is not funny.
Yeah, I also like when there's, in one of the scenes, Scorpion does it subtly. Like, he does say it how he normally would, but there's another part where he's like, Cage, and then he quietly says, get over here. And, like, just to get him to go over to him so he could give him some advice. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was a little bit like, oh, okay, that's sad. You know, I will say this movie is an improvement over the first. If I had a gun to my head and said, which movie am I going to watch of the live-action Mortal Kombat movies, I mean, I'd still pick the original 90s movie, but if I had this or the first, Mortal Kombat 1 from 2021, I'd have been like, just give me the MK2.
Interesting, yeah, because the 1990s one, you know, the first Mortal Kombat movie, even though it wasn't perfect, it still had some sort of a cheesy funness type of entertainment to it that at least made it enjoyable in that way.
Yeah, there was heart there. There was like genuine heart to that film, and also while it was PG-13, and it's not great, but there's like a fun to it. Like it feels like the first 3 games. And I will also say that it was very cool for this movie to give not just Hiroyuki Sanada, but also like Kitagawa, the original actor of Shang Tsung from the original film, and also he's been playing Shang Tsung in the recent MK games. He's been voicing and doing the body motions for him. It was really cool to give him the role of Shang Tsung's father in this game. I mean, in this movie, excuse me.
No, yeah, it does feel like a game, so it's easy to, like, mix up the media, you know?
And maybe that's why I'm so not angry about this movie, or not like, F this movie. I mean, it's flawed, but, like, there's heart here, and if the movie has heart, I give it way more credit. It's kind of like, and I don't know if you've heard of this movie, Steven, but I would recommend it for at least just to see how different it is. It's a movie called Waves of Madness.
No, I have not seen this.
It came out this year. It's basically a movie done in one take, but the whole movie is shot like a side-scrolling video game.
Oh, wow.
It's very low budget, but I appreciate when a movie does something different and has heart to it, and I will never take that away from a film that has, like, genuine, like, care, or, like, you want to reference the source material.
Yeah.
I think that's why I appreciate this movie more than the first one, because the first one felt like we're trying to take away the essence of MK1 and try to, you know, put realism to it, and this one's like, no, Mortal Kombat ain't real. I can fire that fireball.
Yeah, and sort of tangential to that, it kind of makes me think of how, you know, when fans of movies, or of animated movies, I should say, whenever they make their own, like, live action version of something, you know, like for example a live action Toy Story or whatever, you can tell that they are doing it from a place of love, and you know it has heart, and so it's more impressive. Whereas when the studios themselves make a live action remake of something that was already great, and then it just doesn't, like they use all their resources just to make something that's not as good. Like it doesn't feel like it has the heart more often than not.
Yeah. Now I will say that like the budget sometimes they clearly overextended themselves. I mean, like I made the joke of that Chrysler building scene probably took a lot of the money, but thinking on it, it probably did.
Yeah, and I guess that's why they ended up going with one of the cheaper locations, which was a cabin, and they had a whole fight that happened in there. You know, it was like a low budget, low stakes type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the problem, is that if I know you wanted to do like a big set piece scene, but like maybe not. Maybe save that money for just a wee bit something better.
Yeah. What'd you think of what they ended up using for like the final climactic fight? That whole set piece.
That whole fight with Shao Kahn, which first off, Shao Kahn, I appreciate that like he's kind of like they build him up, but like that fight felt a little too shaky cam. Was it just me?
Yeah, it did have that feeling to it, which, you know, shaky cam is not, it's really not my cup of tea. You know, I liked Cloverfield like fine enough, but it's not something I would rewatch right away because of the shaky cam is really off-putting to me. So yeah, they could have done the cinematography better here.
Yeah. And it's so weird that the final fight feels shaky cam, whereas the rest of the movie legit felt like they had a like they were actually like filming properly the fight scenes. So I was like, did y'all just lose money at the end? Like by the end of the film, did you just run out of money?
Yeah, in a way, it kind of felt like it might have been a holdover from some of the creative choices from the previous movie. Like maybe for the beginning of shooting, they kept in mind that they wanted it to feel more quote-unquote realistic, and then a little bit after that they were like, you know what, let's just make something that doesn't feel too realistic. And then maybe this was one of the things that stuck from those early parts of the shoot or something.
Yeah, maybe maybe you're right. I was just kind of like I was just kind of the thought process of, and I've always been a thing of maybe save. I know it's a cool idea for a set piece, guys, but you know, a story is better if you have, you know, if you put your money to it.
Yeah. And I will say that even though they were trying to make it less realistic, there are some scenes, or some moments rather, that still have that problem that I have with some modern movies, which is when they use like a darker color palette and things don't look as good as they should, and it's just to make it look more modern and gritty. So I kind of wish they'd had less of that.
Yeah. And if we get a third one, which they do tease an after credit scene, and we'll get probably that at very soon. I hope they get more money and also like maybe a better cinematographer, because I feel like the guy just started just gave no by the end of the film.
Yeah.
The other thing I do want to bring up is that maybe we should, and I know I'm saying this for a fighting game, maybe cut down on the characters, make it a little more concise story. Because that's the problem with fighting games on a whole, is a fighting game adaptations is like you want to throw in every character.
Yeah, that's a good point. Fighting games, there's like a huge roster of characters to choose from, but for each match you only have like a couple of the characters, so maybe that is an approach that the movies should take. I mean, in this movie alone, like, you got Johnny Cage, Katana, Sonya Blade, Kano, Liu Kang, Jax, Jade, like a bunch of other characters, and it's I know that they don't know how many movies like live action movies they can make, and so maybe they're thinking, well, let's throw in as many as we can because we don't know how long this will last. But it still feels like a bit much and can be a bit overwhelming for anyone not super familiar with the lore.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, and I'm going back to Scorpion's Revenge, is that one literally just told the whole story of Mortal Kombat from the perspective of Scorpion, and I'm like, is it that hard to do this in live action?
Yeah.
Like, just follow one character, and you could have the perspective of that character throughout the film, and not have that character also be a boring sack of crap named Cole Young. They do that a little better here with Johnny Cage as the main focus, but halfway through the film, they focus a little too much on Liu Kang and Katana, and then they shift, like, they're trying, again, it's a balancing act, and also with Raiden, the stuff with the Elder Gods, and it just, like, again, like, by the second act, like, and going into the third, you're like, whose movie is this again?
And it kind of reminds me of, when my brother and I watched Reign of the Superman, we were like, why can't the live action DC movies be like this? There's always that comparison between live action and animation. It's like, why can't they just look at what works in the animated stuff and try to apply that to live action?
Yeah, because, and I'm going to say something a little odd. I think it might be writer envy.
Oh, like they are trying not to be like the writers of the animated stuff out of spite or something, or...
Like, I think it's because, like, they want to do something different because I think some writers, and it's funny because I'm about to say this as a writer, some people just, like, some writers just think they can do the story better, when it comes to, like, it's really hard for seeing an adaptation that's not changed at all, like Last of Us, and how much that first season felt like the first game. And they could say, oh, people don't want to watch, like, the game they just played. And I'm like, yes, they do. Again, Last of Us, and hopefully God of War gets that right. So, I feel like there is a disconnect, and even like animated movie writers do this too, where they'll take and I'm about to say this about DC movies, that DC animated film writers, for the most part, try to drastically change a story plot we know, when I'm like,
yeah, because they want to form their own stamp, right?
Yeah, their own stamp and what have you. It was the same. It was like my problem with Hush, their adaptation of Hush, or Long Halloween.
What's funny is that, I agree, like, Long Halloween could have been adapted better, but I actually liked the changes in Hush, because there were some things in the original story where I'm like, they're really not going to guess that this character is who Hush is, and so that's why I was more okay with the changes in the Hush movie, but I recognize that I'm in the minority for that.
Yeah. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, man, but, like, it's like Long Halloween, or the changes done in... now, there are some changes that do work, like Batman the Animated, like Under the Red Hood. That story was changed, and now that's considered more canon than the actual story. I'm just, like, I'm sorry to go on this tangent. I'm just trying to say that, like...
No, yeah, it's all Warner Brothers, so it's all good.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I feel like sometimes writers want to just stick their dick in it. For lack of a better word.
Yeah, I get what you mean, and, like, I'm trying to think of if it ever works, and the only example I can think of is, like, with The Dark Knight, trilogy, which you could kind of look at as like its own separate universe, like a what if scenario, like what if Batman was realistic and that worked fine, but it's not gonna work for everyone to like try to drastically reshape something into what they want that might not match as much with the lore. I'm trying to like word myself carefully and not say what the fans want, because we all know sometimes fans of things can be a bit too much, you know. So was there anything else you want to go over before we talk about the tease at the end?
Nothing I can really think of. Let's talk about the tease at the end.
Alright.
So the tease at the end is that, and I was like, wow, that's way too early, but sure, I can go with that. They basically tease after Shao Kahn gets killed in this movie, which I was like, you killed Shao Kahn way too early, so what are you going to have? And it cuts away to Shang Tsung in this cave, and he's like, well, you know, Shao Kahn was just kind of a means to an end, and I serve a higher power, and out comes Onagu. Now, those who don't know who Onagu is, and just saw a 10-foot-tall dragon man just step out, and I'm sure some of the furries had a bit of a sexual experience right there. Onagu was the first emperor of Outworld and ruler. He's kind of like the dark side type character of Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
So basically, he's kind of a big deal in the Mortal Kombat mythos.
Right. Yeah. When that happened, there were a couple people like in the row in front of me who were like, "Yo, let's go!" But there was also someone else in my theater who, like, after that, did the whole Ross from Friends thing and said "unagi," and it was like really hard to take seriously after that.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, Onagu is kind of like he's a character from a kind of contentious game line in Mortal Kombat history, so I get it. But there is like a major following behind him because he's always the villain everyone wants to see back.
Okay, well, what's so not being steeped in Mortal Kombat video game fandom? What's the like controversy, or I guess like negativity surrounding the character in some circles?
The game he came from was kind of, how do I put this, bad. So he's kind of swept over by how the game turned out. So, but he was definitely the character himself was really cool and imposing, and also it was just nice to see a villain who wasn't Shang Tsung or Shao Kahn for the umpteenth time. And he actually felt like a physical threat.
Okay.
So, it is cool to have the Dragon Emperor back. That's what he was called. Because he was actually like a fucking dragon man.
Yeah, and I think some of the budget went to him, so that might explain why there's like some things that don't look as good in this movie.
Yeah. I will also say that, I know that voice. Like, I don't know if they'll keep him for the third movie, but, like, I was like, oh, we have Keith David voicing Onagu.
Yeah.
Perfect. When you want, like, a deep, resonating voice and threatening villain, there's really only three actors you go to when you want, like, a deep, resonating voice. Those being Keith David, Ron Perlman, and Michael Ironside.
Yeah, like, Keith David has done a lot of stuff. He voices a new character in King of the Hill, but they don't feature the character quite as much as one would think, given that, they brought him to voice the character, but maybe in a future season, I don't know. So what are your final thoughts, score out of 10, and unit of measurement for that score for Mortal Kombat 2?
I will say that this movie isn't perfect, but it's an improvement over the first movie by a country mile. like I said, I would rather watch this movie over the first one, and it feels like the filmmakers do want to have you have that feeling too. Having said that, I feel like it gets muddled at the second part and just kind of thrown at the wall at the third. But having said all that, I would be very okay with giving this 7 Johnny Cage shades out of 10.
Okay, nice. Yeah, for me, I think I'm a little bit lower on it. Like, you know, and maybe part of it is that I'm not as steeped into Mortal Kombat lore, so some things kind of went over my head with this one. But I could tell that, you know, they at least tried, and it was definitely an improvement over the first one. So I think I'd give this one 6.5 out of 10 Snicker bars. So like you have 6 of them and one of them is half eaten. All right, but I guess that'll do it. So thanks for joining me again, Mr. Multiverse, and without doxing yourself, where can people find you?
They can find me on YouTube at Mr. Multiverse. You can also find me on Patreon with the same name. Thank you very much. And I have 2 short stories written, published. If you ever wanted to see the Mothman fight the Jersey Devil or a vampire and a velociraptor fight, go check out Duel of the Monsters Volumes 1 and 2. Those are the short stories I've written. And Volume 3, just to hype this up, if it ever gets published, Volume 3 will have yours truly having a story of Mr. Hyde versus the Invisible Man.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so go check that out, and all your, that helps get me money. So thank you in advance, everyone.
Yeah, go ahead and check out those stories, everyone. And yeah, those sound like really... like, at the very least, they sound like they would be very fun mashups and, you know, duels and whatnot between those iconic characters or even, like, recognizable types of creatures. So they sound like a lot of fun. That'll do it for now, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. So without further delay, have a good day. Alright, so you can email delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on side-scrolling video games, I guess. You can also find me on my socials listed in the show notes. Go to stevenshinder.com for info on my standalones and stepping stones novels. And find me on Yes Shift, a podcast I do with my dad about the band Yes. We recently interviewed Brian Willoughby about Straubs, and the upcoming Cousins and Willoughby re-release of The Bridge album. Looking forward to that. Getting to listen to it whenever I get a chance. And I've also been vlogging over there about records and their upcoming concerts coming up that I'm going to see, so there will be reviews there. And I've also been doing news episodes, so plenty of stuff happening there and over at Drum Talk TV and Drum Talk TV Brilliance. So I guess that's it for now for me. My other self will say his non-spoiler reviews of Begonia, Predator Badlands, and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. So without further delay, here's my other self. Hey everyone, so yeah, new movies I got to see this week. Well, first off, if you want to see like any other movies I've been watching, whether they be old or new, you can check out my Letterboxd account. I actually recently finally saw the 2017 Mummy movie, and yeah, it was pretty bad. I think I gave it like a 3 or 4 or something out of 10. Dracula Untold, I think, is better than that movie, and yeah, both of those were attempts at trying to jumpstart a cinematic universe. But yeah, Dracula Untold, a historical fiction aspect was interesting, you know, merging Dracula and Vlad, but it also feels weird making Dracula an anti-hero, so I don't know, I guess it's okay, maybe a 6. I don't think it's as bad as people were saying it was when it came out back in the day. I did finish listening to the podcast series Star Trek Con, and I do like how there is the question of, or speculation that Khan had the chance to do something good and that could have changed things, and in a way that might be comforting to some people, because it's like even an evil person has the capacity to be good even if they were bad still in the end. And it's an interesting way to look at things, I guess. And I think I forgot to mention last week, I started Welcome to Derry. I've only seen the first 2 episodes. It's somewhat interesting. It's at least better than Alien Earth to me. It's scarier in some ways, but I also feel maybe I'm so desensitized that some of the things that they show don't really shock me too much. But anyway, getting to these newer movies, watched Begonia and Predator Badlands on my birthday. Actually, it was a really fun day. Also watched an improv show later that day that included 2 different teams. One of them was role play, and the other was Improv City, like their Thursday team right before. But yeah, and Emma Stone and I share the same birth date, just different years. So it seemed like good choices to watch for my birthday, given the buzz I'd been hearing about Begonia and Predator Badlands coming out that very day, the early, the Thursday afternoon screenings and whatnot. Begonia is a remake of a foreign film, and it's about these 2 guys. They kidnap this CEO because they think she's an alien. She's played by Emma Stone, and they want her to contact the mothership, and there's like a lot going on because one of these guys, Jesse Plemons' character, feels like he's lost a lot, and kind of is on this self-righteous mission of trying to save the world and whatnot. And the movie really keeps you guessing. It's a thriller, so it's a lot of it is contained in this one house, but there are other locations that get shown. And yeah, I really enjoyed the shots that this movie had throughout. The cinematography was great, the acting was great, the story really kept me on my toes, kept me surprised, and I loved it. I'm even wondering if it could possibly be my favorite film of the year now. It's definitely in my top 3. I guess, competing against Weapons and 28 Years Later. Yeah, this has been such a really great year for like favorite movies, I guess. Yeah, it's more, I guess it has more of an indie art house feel to it, but it's so good, which I was very surprised about, because the last 2 films that this director did I wasn't as into, so really pleasantly surprised that I loved this movie, and I don't want to spoil too much about it. It's really worth seeing. So Predator Badlands, I've been saying that the Predator franchise has been in such a good place now compared to years ago. Even though Prey I thought was kind of okay because the pacing was kind of weird to me, but clearly I'm in the minority and it's universally loved, and that led to this franchise thriving, and how having had an animated movie, Predator Killer of Killers, which was excellent, possibly my favorite Predator movie, at least at the time it came out earlier this year, and now Predator Badlands. I'm wondering if it might top that. It's definitely my favorite live-action Predator movie, and it very well could have gone sideways. Like, I was talking about, Dracula being an anti-hero, and there are times where a villain, when you kind of learn more about them and you're told to root for them a bit, it can come off kind of weird and maybe unearned in some cases, but they made this work. And I think part of that is that you have iconic villains, your Draculas, your Hannibal Lecters, your Darth Sidiouses, like they're all that one character, but the Predators, they are an alien species, and so there's not just one main villain Predator throughout the whole entire franchise. So you could very well have variety. Here you have a younger Predator. I forget how his species name is pronounced. It's like Yautja or something. But yeah, he's considered not as worthy of a warrior among his clan, and ends up on this world where he has to prove himself, going after a particular a particular target. And I really enjoy how this gives time to include subtitles for the alien language. It felt to me like the modern Planet of the Apes films in that regard. But you also have Elle Fanning's character, Thea, this android from the Weyland-Yutani company. And yeah, this is connected to that company from the Alien films. So it was interesting having these elements from Alien without actually having xenomorphs or anything. But yeah, Thea at first felt like she was the comic relief and sort of just explaining everything. So I was kind of concerned that maybe it would feel like there's too much tell, don't show. And I was even wondering whether the movie would have been better if she were omitted. Like, could it work if she were omitted? And I think maybe it could have, but the film really convinces you that her inclusion really does add something. Her her connections to the company and other androids, it leads to, you can compare it to the dynamic between Deck, that's the main Predator we're following, this young hunter guy. His dynamic with the others of his clan, and the setting and the fauna on this world. It's just you really do get immersed. There's some really creative ideas here, and yeah, I was just really sold on the way that they did this. And I will admit that it does kind of feel like the vibe of The Mandalorian, but I don't really mind that. I think this feels refreshing for a Predator movie. It's still, for people concerned that there might not be that much violence or whatever, there definitely is plenty of it. But there's also a compelling story there, and you get invested. It's a movie really needs to make you feel invested in the characters, and I feel like Predator Badlands did such an amazing job. It's definitely in my top 5 films of the year now. I'm really curious how Wicked for Good might shake up my top 5. Perhaps will it knock something off? I don't know. I guess we'll see. And of course, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is now finally on Netflix. I gave it a watch and I really enjoyed it. The practical effects were great. The designs of the creature and the all the stuff that they would show, it was just so well put together. And yeah, there are changes from the source material, but there have been so many Frankenstein adaptations that it's really surprising to me that there's so much discourse online right now. People willing to die on hills of like, this was a bad movie because it missed this, that, and the other. But I feel like it really did some stuff really well and really conveyed the conflict in the characters. I thought that the actors did a great job. The overall look of the film was great. It's 2.5 hours, but it feels deserved. So, yeah, and watching the 45-minute featurette, Frankenstein, the anatomy lesson, really shows you how they put all this stuff together, and maybe that'll make people appreciate it even more. But yeah, I would give this maybe an 8, possibly 8.5. The others, Begonia and Predator Badlands, are at least 9s, I think. Begonia possibly closer to 9.5, I don't know. Yeah, I'm still kind of digesting these things and debating whether I want to make a video for my YouTube channel, Steven Shinder Reviews in video form. I definitely want to make one for Predator Badlands. I'm trying to figure out if I have enough to say about Begonia, like if I'm able to put something together that won't just sound too rambly, I guess, like I sometimes feel like I get on here. But yeah, really pleased with these movies, but of course I'm still looking forward to Wicked for Good. That might possibly be the last theater experience of the year for me, but I guess we'll see. There could be other surprises. But yeah, go ahead and follow my stuff, my reviews, and this podcast will be back next week with a different topic. So without further delay, have a good day.